Hello, Nathan. How are you?
Morning, Asim.
Morning.
Hello, Azeem. Good morning.
Hello. Hey, sure, yeah, good. I just had one thing on my screen.
Good
I
morning,
see it,
Asim.
but good morning, guys. It's exciting. I see Belina. Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. We'll be starting shortly. We're just waiting for some of our speakers and participants to join. Thank you for joining.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar, Transition to Academia in India. It is December 7th, 2024, 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. So this webinar is being presented to you by Cyroy. Cyroy is an initiative of Winstep Forward, and it is a volunteer-driven, not-for-profit organization. Cyroy is basically for young scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs in the US to access professional opportunities across academic and private sectors in India as well as in the United States. Cyroy organizes annual meetings, satellite events, regional meetings, and informative webinars and online recruitment drives throughout the year. Cyroy's website also hosts an up-to-date career portal. At Cyroy, we aim to create and improve awareness on the latest STEM and entrepreneurial opportunities in India. Here you can see this year we had two very successful annual events. The first photo is from our US annual event, which was held in Tennessee. And on the right, you can see our very first Europe annual event, which was held in Germany. And using the QR code on the screen, you can actually join us. You can fill in the Google form and join us and be a part of CIROI. We have Dr. Asim Ansari with us today, who is the founder of CIROI. Dr. Ansari, would you like to say a few words?
Well, I'm really proud of what you guys have done. Not much to say other than the hope is that through meetings like this, we'll be able to develop a network that enables people to find the careers that they would like to build in India. And today's meeting is particularly important because we are trying to hear from people who have gone back to India, established their careers there, and it gives us the opportunity to figure out where the gaps might be and how might CIROI and MinStep Forward help fill those gaps and enable people who've gone back to really flourish and be the scientists and entrepreneurs and professionals that they would like to be.
Thank you,
Thank you
Dr.
very much.
Ansari. So we also wanted to open up this opportunity for everyone here today that as CIROI, we are always looking for volunteers, and we're going to open up the call for volunteers very soon. Please be on the lookout on our social media channels. Okay. So as I've already spoken about our annual meeting, next year in September, we are having our 10th annual meeting, both in the US and our second annual meeting in Europe. And here is a slide where we want you to guess which city is it happening. And I'm going to give you the answer in the next slide. Yes, next year we are having our US event in Washington, DC, 13th to 14th September, and we're having our second annual meeting in Europe in Vienna, Austria, 10th and 11th September. We hope to see you all over there. So for today's webinar, Transition to Academia in India, we have 2 hours time. We are going to start with Dr. Prabhat Kumar Parida, then followed by Dr. Ishwarya Venkatesh, Dr. Ritabrata Thakur, Dr. Kuljit Kaur, Dr. Sandeep Ameta, followed by a panel discussion and closing remarks. So this is going to be our agenda for today. Here, I'm going to introduce our 5 speakers, 5 young faculties who have transitioned to India, either from the US or from Europe. First, we have Dr. Prabhat Kumar Parida, who is an assistant professor at IISER, Behrampur. He works with metabolism and cancer, and he is a former postdoc at UT Southwestern Medical Center. Second, we have Dr. Ishwarya Venkatesh, who is a senior scientist at CSIR CCMB in neurobiology. She is a former postdoc at Marquette University. Next, we have Dr. Ritabrata Thakur, who is an assistant professor at IIT Delhi in applied mechanics. He is a former postdoc at the University of Michigan. Next, we have Dr. Kuljit Kaur, who is an assistant professor at IIT Roorkee in polymer and process engineering. She is a former postdoc at EPFL, Switzerland. Next, we have Dr. Sandeep Ameta with us, who is an assistant professor at Ashoka University in biology. He is a former postdoc at ESPCI Paris. So first, we would like to start with Dr. Prabhat Kumar Parida. And we would like you to share your career journey with us through this slide. Thank you, Dr. Prida.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, the whole Sai Roy team, and also Asimji for the invitation. And yeah, to brief my overall career journey, it's my postgraduate was from NIT Rourkela, which was in 2011. Then I joined Bose Institute, Calcutta for my PhD, where my work was mostly focused on cancer and drug discovery. And I completed my PhD from University of Calcutta in 2019. And after 2 to 3 months, I joined UT Southwestern Medical Center, Dallas, in the metastasis lab of Dr. Maladi. And from 2019 to last of 2023, around December 2023, I did my postdoc from UT Southwestern Medical Center, where my work was mostly focused on cancer metastasis, mostly the metabolic aspects of metastasis. And in 2024 January, I joined ISER Berhampur, where in future I'm actually looking for the cancer metastasis, or mostly the metabolic aspects, and also how Indian diet habits that lead to the metabolic diseases and related drug discovery. And that is what I am actually planning for my future. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Parita. Next, we have Dr. Ishwarya Venkatesh with us. Dr. Ishwarya, would you like to share your career journey with us?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm glad that the first session was useful and there was demand for another session. So happy to share our insights. So I did my PhD from Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee in neuroscience. Before that, I had a BTech in biotechnology from Anna University. And then I did a 4-year postdoc at Marquette. I transitioned to a non-tenure track, independent position in Marquette. For 3 years, I had my lab there. And I went on the job market in 2021 and joined CCMB in April of 2022 as a Ramanujan Fellow when I was transitioning back. And then in December, my appointment at CCMB got, finalized to a more permanent position, which is a senior scientist at CCMB. So I've been there for now 2.5 years, going through the ups and downs of setting up a lab in India and getting used to how things work here. So I'm happy to share more depending on what they want to hear, but this is my journey in short. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Venkatesh. Next, we have Dr. Ritabhrata Thakur. Dr. Thakur.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Special thanks to the Cyro team and the organizers. So I've attended quite a few of these online events, and it has been really great, and it's helpful and informative, even when I was transitioning to the Indian academia about 1.5 years ago. So to briefly state my background, so I am a mechanical engineer and a physicist by training. So I'm currently in the applied mechanics department of IIT Delhi in Hoskas. So my journey began, my research, my interest in mechanics began with mechanical engineering degree from NIT Silchar in Assam. Then I did my PhD and a master's in physics from the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research in Bangalore, the center called the International Center for Theoretical Sciences. Then I moved to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor to do a postdoc in the Department of Earth and Environment Sciences. My work is mostly related to geophysical fluid dynamics, ocean turbulent mixing, fluid dynamics, and fundamental studies related to turbulence transition. And I can certainly talk to other people if they're interested in understanding different aspects of my research. And so I've been I have experience in working with different data sets and numerical models and some theoretical problems, and the various agencies that actually are relevant. And some of these, I'm just trying to state some of the names so that people are familiarized with those. So the ANRF is the most recent change that has happened in the Indian academia, in the Indian R&D funding scene. Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways is one which can support my work, and then Ministry of Defense is one of the agencies. But I'll keep it short. If there are some other questions, I'll be happy to answer it later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thakur. Next, we have Dr. Kuljeet Paul with us. Dr. Paul, would you like to share your career journey?
Yeah, hi. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So thank you again for inviting me. This is the second meeting I'm attending. I was formerly a part of the meeting in Europe, and that was my first time being a part of SciRoy. It was really a great experience for us as speakers as well. So a little bit about myself. I did my bachelor's and master's in chemistry honors from India. It was Guru Nanak Dev University. And I worked in industry for about 3.5 years and realized that I was not meant for industry. So I started looking for positions. So I found a PhD position for the work I was interested in doing, which was basically drug delivery. So I went to Virginia Tech, did my PhD there. It was on peptide-based drug delivery materials. So I'm a chemist by training, but really wanted to explore materials. So after doing my PhD, I got interested in polymers, and that is how I ended up at a polymers laboratory at EPFL. Spent about 3 years there, and then I was on the job market from 2021, which was the COVID time, and I moved back to India in 2022, and then I was looking for jobs for almost a year before I heard from IIT Roorkee. We can talk about that, why I had all these challenges. But since May of this year, I have been working as an assistant professor at IIT Roorkee in the Department of Polymer and Process Engineering. And my research interests are again, it's polymer and peptide-based materials. I'm interested in exploring hydrogels, the network structure of hydrogels and their applications. So that's all about me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Next, we have Dr. Sandeep Ameta with us. Dr. Ameta, do you want to share your career journey with us?
Hi. So, hi everyone. Thanks, Sairo, for the invitation, and it's a great initiative. It's like Kuljeet, this is my second one, and I'm really liking it. So my journey started from masters in IIT Bombay. After that, I moved to it was in bioinformatics mostly as my thesis work, and then I moved to Germany for my PhD, doing mostly RNA biochemistry or chemical biology, RNA conjugations. Then I learned about shift my gears to more biophysics type of work in my postdoc at ASPCI Paris. After that, I wanted to move back, and I decided, okay, this is the right time. I looked for position, but I realized that away from Indian system for long, I wanted to get a feel of it. So I took a independent fellow position at NCBS Simon Center. Worked for 3/4 year during the COVID time there, and then from 2023 mid, I started as an assistant professor at Ashoka. So the big picture we have in mind to create some synthetic system, lifelike systems, and analyzing the dynamics using the different biophysical techniques in liquid phase separated environment. And I'm looking forward to discuss more.
Thank you, Dr. Ameta. For all the audience present in this webinar, there will be a poll for the audience right now. Please make sure to answer the poll. Thank you.
Are we able to see the poll? No, right? Not yet.
No, not yet. Yeah, be received.
Okay.
Thanks.
See the result of the poll on your screen?
Yes.
Do you all see the results?
No, not I, but that might.
Yeah,
No, no.
I was able to see it.
I can do one thing just quickly. Just stop sharing this. Okay, so this is what we have from the primary area of research. They are like people from cancer biology, from genomics, from fluid dynamics, from chemistry, biochemistry, physiology. So I think we have a group of people who are working in different fields, whether it is biology, physics, or chemistry. So it's a pretty diverse group what we have today. Thank you.
That's
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nitin. Okay. So let's move forward with the webinar. And here are a few of the webinar etiquettes I would want to remind our audiences about. Please keep yourself muted unless you are speaking. When you're asking a question, please introduce yourself and then ask the questions in the Zoom chat. And we would request you to keep your video on for better interaction. Thank you. So now let's open up the forum for discussion. And I'm going to start with the very first question. And I guess this is a question which represents all the postdocs like me who are in the US or in the Europe who want to transition back. This question is for all 5 of our panelists. So how did you successfully make your way back to India? When did you start the planning? And when did you know this is the right time to start planning? Dr. Ishwarya Venkatesh, do you want to start?
Oh, sure. When do I know? When do you know if it's the right time? I think before I moved back, I thought maybe 6 months to 8 months before you think you're ready to start would be a right time. But now that I'm on this side, I'd say a year and a half, if possible, is the right time. So when you have your final paper or like some of your most important papers, either ready for submission or as a preprint if it's out, that is the time I would start the process, because as you guys may know or may not know, the process in India is much longer than what it is in the US or even Europe. So it can take, in a CSIR system, it can easily take a year for your from your first interview to your joining date. So I guess that's as far as the timing goes. I think people are also, many of the faculty search committee members are also open to a pre sort of check-in. If you wanted to find someone from that institute and say, look, this is where I am, and I'm wondering if I should go on the market right now, or if I should give an informal seminar, most places are accommodative of that kind of request. So they can actually tell you that as well. As far as how did you successfully transition? I think casting somewhat of a wide net. I think it's important to kind of figure out what basic infrastructure, facilities, and kind of environment is needed for your kind of research. and then going and applying to at least 5 more than what you think is needed. Because I think the interview process is all about fit ultimately, whether they're looking for someone with your expertise and your complementary expertise. And I think just realizing that it is not any different than a US interview process, the only difference being the timing and possibly the fit. So I hope that that was clear, and I'm happy to go into more detail if needed. But yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Venkatesh. Dr. Kaur, do you want to share some of your journey?
Yeah, hi. So I do agree with Dr. Venkatesh. Thing is, I would say as soon as you start, as you have started your postdoc, you should definitely start to think about this. Networking is a huge thing. I can tell you from a personal experience because both me and my husband are in academia, and we both wanted to move back to India. So we are a two-body problem. And he was, I would say, more proactive, and he was, whenever we visited India, he was going for these informal seminars which Dr. Venkatesh have mentioned, and people are actually very receptive of these. I, on the other hand, did not do this because if you think about it, if you do especially your PhD abroad and your postdoc abroad, it has been more than 6 to 7 years, and you lose touch with the Indian academia. So it's very important for you to go back, network before you actually want to apply formally. So networking is very important. I think it should start. I would suggest do not wait for that paper to be published. Just go out there, give seminars. You still have your PhD work. You can like really communicate that. You can always communicate what you want to do in future. And of course, your postdoc work is ongoing. So as soon as you start your postdoc, especially for example, I always wanted to do just one postdoc. I did not want to do another one. I was very clear about it. So if that is also your situation, so I would say at the beginning of the postdoc, you should start to think very seriously about this and go for seminars informally.
That's a great point, Dr. Kaur, that you said that at the beginning of your postdoc is when you started to clearly think about. So, but some of us are still making up our minds. When do you think is like a good, so an average postdoc would be like anything between 4 to 6 years or whatever. So, according to you all, even Dr. Amita, if you would like to pitch in, or Dr. Thakur, Dr. Parida, when is a good time for a postdoc to start applying? Like you said, maybe the first year itself or the second year. If there's a timeline like that, would you have?
So I would say, I mean, you do postdoc for clarity and getting your experience in a particular field to develop your own expertise. Okay. So once you start to see that this is the field which is really suiting you, and you can have an idea, big picture in mind, which you can carry on for next 10 years. Okay. And then you prepare yourself that I need to move back to India with this idea, whether this will be feasible in the type of academic environment I'm going. So two things you have to clarify. Then you start looking, whenever you go back India, you have some initial data, you go and discuss informally with people, which will help, I think, to know that you are doing something in that particular field. And so you're thinking of writing your proposal to joining an institute, as Aishwarya said, I think at almost 1.5 years or even more. So once you get clarified, okay, paper will come out now, maybe paper takes time. I mean, you can put in archives and go. Start your proposal, get your feedback. This is type of thing I would like to propose in this institute, whether it will be receptive or not, go for informal talks, and then sincerely apply. So yeah, 1.5 years would be a good time.
Just picking up of that, could you also elaborate on what do you think are important factors that recruiters or institutes look for in an academic position? Are there any specific pointers that you would like to share? This is probably a little longer question. A lot of us would be interested in that, so we could go one by one. Maybe Dr. Thakur, would you like to start?
Well, if you're asking for crucial factors, I mean, I think it was already mentioned that the most crucial factor is the fit. So I think all of us probably have worked hard to build their resume, CV,
Right.
their academic expertise, and certainly, I mean, I was there in applying for different places. I was casting a wide net, and I was uh, trying to find some fits in different departments, see if there are some overlaps with different kinds of people that they're working. And certainly the fit is the most important factor. And then trying to talk to people, see if they're interested remotely, if there is some kind of an interest developing in the department regarding your work, and if you can apply to this department. So yeah, so then give some talks and show your relevance to the department, the expertise that you bring, complementary expertise, and also the kind of overlap that's there that the department is looking towards to already. I mean, already have some expertise. So, and I think certainly very well-regarded publications do help. But sometimes sitting on the other side of the panel now, like sitting in the selection panels of faculty members, at this point, I feel that even sometimes we have to say no to people who have extremely good academic records because they don't really fit very well, even though they're extremely prolific researchers. So,
okay, that's good. That's good to know.
We have a question from one of our audiences, Arindam Naha. He wants to ask about postdocs over 40 years, who are 40 years old or over. What's the possibility of success or the success rate with private universities? Because this becomes important with age issues in Indian academia. So if either of you, I know Dr. Sandeepa Mehta, you're from Ashoka, do you want to tell something about this? What's the age limit for application?
Age
limit in some institute is pretty crucial, but I think it's what my experience tell from all the interviews I gave, age limit is a secondary factor they look. There is no direct, sometimes some IITs might have pretty specific due to all the parameters they look for age limit, but I think if your science is good, your ideas are good, I think that could be overlooked. Age is not that a big issue.
So I was just going to jump in and give a slightly different opinion of how it is, at least in the CSIR system. They should know that this age limit is exercised differently in different institutes, right? It's very institute specific. As far as CSIR goes, they do take age very seriously. Now, there's a whole debate about whether they should, which I'm not going to go into. But just for knowledge sake, they do follow that quite strictly. And that is considered an important factor when it comes to job applications. I think the other factor that now that, again, like now from this side, I'm noticing that the CV gets you a foot in the door, right? Like I tweeted about this also recently. That's what gets you there, and they're keen to know some of your postdoc work, but really honestly, they just want to know your vision for what you want to do in your own lab. And I think that is a common mistake we're seeing, that repeatedly, if there's a 1 hour talk, more than 50 minutes is spent in explaining postdoc work, and then there's 2 slides on the end about what they want to do. And this has become something that terrific people on paper that we've had to say no to, simply because we just couldn't get a feel for what they want to do if given the job. So I would say that the most crucial factor, age and everything else, your papers aside, they want to know what you are going to do in your independent position. How is it different?
Right.
And
So
how
that's
is it? Yeah.
okay. So Dr. Venkatesh is now also talking about the factors that are important. So you're trying to answer both those questions about the age and what are the, which is a great thing. That's for us to remember and the audience to remember that age is a factor that is probably very crucial for CSIR institutes and other government institutes, and for private it may be a little more relaxed. And
Yeah,
the other thing,
so add to some of the point of
yes,
Dr. Venkatesh. Also in our ISER system, age is one of the primary factor, because we are looking for young faculties, and I will suggest if it is below 35, that is always better, and above 37, the chances are very little, because This is where we are following more like a elimination pattern, not selection, because we are getting huge number of applications. Because this time I was in equipment panel, and in the committee is looking at number of application, because let's say we are getting more than 100 application, and the number of position that we have is only one. Then now it starts the elimination process. We need to cut down to, let's say, 10 applications which we can interview, right? And then later it will be only 3 or 4 which will call for the final round interview. So that is where age factor is one. And then career is also like, now pretty much in NITs and IITs, they are very clear about the career. So apart from age, career, and then, yeah, definitely your CV. And if I will suggest if something like cancer biology, having one CNS will be probably sufficient. But if not, then the second tier journal, maybe you need to have 2. So those are the things that we consider in IJAS. But yeah, there will be exceptions for sure. But yeah, these are the parameters that we consider.
Thank you, Dr. Parida. We have a follow-up question for that, for all our panelists. So why, there's someone who asked, why did you not stay abroad longer and then try moving back for a senior position like an associate professor or something similar? Is it considered very difficult to come back at that point? Yes, Dr. Kaur, I see. Yes.
Okay, let me clarify something. It's really hard to join at an associate level in India. Please, if you're planning that, drop that plan. Not gonna work. Most of the institutes, they hire at the assistant level position. For example, IISc does not hire at an associate level. So they are looking for somebody at the assistant level position because, so there are some cases, it happened at Kanpur at some point that they hired somebody at an associate level. But since you have spent so much time abroad, that person had problem getting back into Indian academia at that level and had to leave. So that is a major, major thing. So I think most of the times Indian institutes are reluctant to hire somebody at an associate level, especially coming from abroad. So that's my, at least a thing I knew and I wanted to just share.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Amita.
So I think, yeah, I can say for at least Ashoka that that's not the case. Our current last 3 hirings are associate and professor level even. And all are from US. Yes. So they are happening. Their CVs are more strong. They have their independent position. Somebody is moving their lab, or somebody has finished their independent position and wants to move back. Criteria, the bars are much above level, so that bar has to be reached. If you are associate, you go in a completely different ball game. So I agree with Kulji that not every institute will have this ball game open, but some institute might have.
Thank you. Yes, Paras Kumar, do you have a question?
Hi, thank you firstly for answering my question. So I asked that question, and I have a follow-up for Dr. Kuljeet Kaur. So when you mentioned this, like, is it some sort of a rule followed by the IITs and IISc, or it's like something which is not seen commonly?
So I think IISc has it written somewhere in there. If you go to their recruitment thing and go to FAQs, I think I checked it 3 years back. I don't know if it's changed now. I think they mentioned that there. So I know that for IISc. IITs, I don't know. Most of the times there are unsaid things. For example, the age thing also.
Exactly.
So they do have this 35 limit. But for example, like a lot of people have said this, the age thing can. So for example, there are 10 applications, you want to shortlist that to 5. So then the department discussions, then people start eliminating based on that. So there are these unsaid rules. I don't think they can have this in writing most of the times. A bit problematic because, again, I told you, these are the things which people presume can happen, like people not adjusting well at that level back in Indian academia. So that is the thing, which is like, it's a practice which is followed. Again, I'm not aware of more examples, and I know just that one thing which happened at IIT Kanpur. But again, to answer your question, there are not written rules about this.
Thank you, Dr. Kaur.
I will add one more point to Dr. Kuljit's one. So we need to remember that most of the institute in India, the overall promotions are internally, like, because if you will see the advertisement for associate professorship, that will be very few. Why? Because internally they are taking assistant professor and they will become associate, but only few institutes which are new, they hire associate professor or professor level positions. But again, after 5 years, that will actually go down, because eventually the assistant professor they hire, they will become associate, or associate becomes professor. That is the problem. So number of positions are very few, and then competition will be huge, because they are also like private university, however they have joined, they are probably trying to move, or two body problems are there, they want to also move back to some places. So that's why I will say those positions are few, and that's why it is going to be very difficult.
Thank you, Dr. Farida. And now that we are talking about this private and the public universities in India, there's a question. So when you're applying in India, how do you tailor your applications? Does it have to be tailored separately for the private institutions versus the government ones? Dr.
So I would say, I mean, it's a university. So as far Ashoka is a university, so it's a standard any other application. So you don't need to tailor something different. It's not a research institute; it's a university. So you have to keep in mind that you have teaching also. That is the only thing you need to have from any other institute, which is pure research. You have an undergrad teaching here, which is a strong component that you have to keep in your application. Clearly mention that you are interested and you should be good at it also, because you are evaluated on that basis also. Your tenure is also part of it, that you are a good teacher, your feedbacks are good, and so that is the only I think. But science is science. I mean, I think everywhere is being evaluated same way.
Dr. Thakur, would you like to share some points to that?
Can you please tell me the exact question?
So
Kind of lost it.
when you're applying from the US or Europe to Indian academia, so how do you tailor your application based on private universities or the government institutes?
Yeah, I think certainly everyone, as mentioned, would be looking forward to people who actually have vision and the independence and the abilities to start a new lab. So I don't think there is any difference in all of these excellent universities, both public and private, have kept high standards to recruit people, and we are actually getting a lot of good applicants everywhere. So I think I think it's always best to give your best shot in every single application that the person is interested in. If you're interested in that position, you should give your best. If not, you should probably not apply, and it will be a time saver for everyone. Otherwise, it actually reflects if they want to tailor such things.
Thank you, Dr. Thakur. We have a lot of questions coming up. I'm going to ask one by one. So how do we go about building connections in India for informal sessions, especially when you have done your PhD and postdoc abroad?
I'll take that. I did both my PhD and postdoc abroad. So it did feel like a little bit of a fish out of water when you're trying to get in. For me, Twitter was a great space. Okay. I mean, many of the initial connections I made were on Twitter. I did not give an informal seminar at that point, which I now regret. It could have made my journey a lot easier. And I did see a lot of questions about this. How do we go about giving seminars? When do we give a seminar? Who do we approach? So just so we're all on the same page, the way you do it is not write to the faculty search committee. I mean, you can, but if you really wanted a quick answer, I would find a faculty working in your area of interest, someone relatively young if possible. And I think write to them saying that you're going to be in India so and so, and you were hoping to come and give an informal seminar. So I've done that for at least 5 or 6 faculty who've reached out to me on Twitter, cold emailed me. So that happens routinely. For us at this end, all we need to know is a date And then it's up on the host to, sort of inform as many people as possible. And also when you're making the visit to the institute, you can request the host to let certain faculty know that you're interested in meeting them. So this can be sort of a teaser for your eventual faculty talk, and it will tell you how cold or warm the response is for your application. And I think that can be a big time saver, and it also allows you to come and see the institute under less pressure, because when you're under a faculty search committee talk, you're coming hoping to impress. This is more informal. You actually get a better insight into how the institute rolls, how the people are, so on and so forth. So the way to do it is, right when you're coming to India, give them a couple of months of advance, try to approach faculty directly, let them know specifically in your area. I think that's how you start. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Venkatesh. Someone asked a question about papers on bioarchive. Are they considered when you're applying? Does Dr. Pujit Kaur or Dr. Thakur, anyone, do you have any insights on that?
I think for me in my field, of course they are considered papers. It's not they're not, but like for me in my field, we just don't upload things on archive. So I probably should not take this question.
Okay. Does anyone in our panel have any experience?
So I can just share a small anecdote, like the things that I've heard from institutes, eminent institutes in Bangalore. So they have recruited people without having even a single published paper, and that is one of India's top physics institute. But so it's not bioarchive, so I'm not from the biology area. So it was an archive, and also around I think somewhere around 14 or 15 years ago, they had recruited one more faculty who didn't have any published paper but had terrific research background. I mean, the person had submitted paper, and the person is a prolific researcher now in that institute. So there have been isolated cases where even zero published papers have landed people with extremely good esteemed positions in India, and they have gone on to make a big difference.
Thank you, Dr. Thakur. So another question is, how important is the NET or SET exam for becoming a faculty member in private or public universities in India? Dr. Prabhat Kumar Parida, do you want to say something about this?
Yeah, but yeah, this will be hard to answer for us. But I think what you are looking at, if it will be, let's say PG level, probably you need NET. But if it is UG level, they may not need NET. But again, for let's say state universities, probably they need, because they have that weightage criteria of UGC, right? So you have to, if you have NET, then because out of 100, they have classified everything in UGC table 3A, where I see that NET, SET, or those exams, they matter. And also your PhD will be around 25 weightage. And PhD with NET will be around 30 weightage. So those things are considered in that UGC table 3A rule.
So if someone does
Yes.
their PhD from US or Europe, and I'm believing they don't have NET or any of these exams, are they eligible to apply?
Yeah, they will be eligible, because for a NET exam, if you qualify NET, LS, that will count as 7. And if it is only PhD, it will be 25. PhD with NET will be 30. So more like that. So eventually your score will be based on 95 if you don't have that NET or SET. So that is the thing.
Okay.
So not for the private, I haven't heard of anything like
Yeah,
that.
Me neither. I've never heard of any of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
for CSAT. Yeah, okay. So clearly there are different
Yeah.
priorities and factors that are involved for other institutes.
Yeah, for UGC, it will be according to UGC rule. This like if you will go to BHU, right? BHU recently they published one advertisement where the weightage publication will be, if you have 5 publication, the final weightage will be 10 marks. So those are several criteria. Even they put this NIRF ranking into prospect. So yeah, you need to be careful where you are exactly applying. But as per my knowledge, all these government institutes, they need these they follow these criteria, but may not be true for private universities.
Okay. We have some of our audiences who wants to ask their own questions. Rishita Chaurashi, do you want to ask your own question? You can turn on your camera and your mic and ask.
Hi, thank you, Sayurai, for giving me the opportunity to ask this question. And thank you to the speakers for their time. I'm a senior postdoctoral fellow in University of Maryland, Baltimore. My future goal is bacterial pathogenesis. I work on iron homeostasis, small RNA-based regulation in Pseudomonas aeruginosa. So as you can see, these are my plans, my independent plans, which I would like to take with me. And this was my first thing that I talked with my PI when I entered her lab as a postdoc. So we have this thing that I will take my part and peel off this research from her research. So as you can see that I work on bacterial pathogenesis. So I would have to take the bacterial strains, various plasmids, various specific mutant strains with me when I transition. So it would be great if any of you can suggest how to transfer if I get a job. Like I have been thinking about this for like 2 years. It's just that I have not been able to get a specific answer. Some people say they have used FedEx and their tissue culture has, yeah.
I'm going to move from Rishita's question. I'm going to broaden it and ask, how difficult or easy have you found it to transport your resources, maybe intellectual stuff, or even like your reagents from a different country to your current place of job? Have you faced any such difficulties? And maybe we can even broaden that a little bit more to probably ask you, were there any major difficulties that you have faced while you transitioned to India in your journey?
Maybe I can answer that. So I'm having one material transfer agreement with UT Southwestern Medical Center, where I'm actually trying to get the cell line which we generated during my postdoc. And that is possible, but it's a tough job because the original cell line has been generated by other institutes, and they have agreement with, let's say I'm actually making agreement with ATCC. Okay. So that person need to actually give consent to ATCC. Then ATCC will give consent to us, and then ATCC will give consent to UT Southwestern Medical Center. Then we will have an MTA with UT Southwestern. So it's a whole lot of process.
Right.
So that will take time, but eventually it's possible because I'm now at the last stage of MTA agreement, where I'm signing agreement with UT Southwestern Medical Center, and
Right.
other documents have been already
Right.
cleared.
So
So
that's
it's
how
tough.
cell lines. Yeah. And
Yes.
Dr. Venkatesh, would you have any?
It was quite straightforward, actually. I mean, if you generated the strains and it's your, I can understand with cell lines if it's generated elsewhere, but for me, for all of my plasmids, it was very straightforward. Only thing I would recommend is to get situated in your institute and then start the process, because I think it's a lot easier if you have the support system of your admin. Many of the universities and research institutes have customs clearance procedures in place, and there are people who handle that very well. So it's possible.
Was
It
there
might
any?
take.
Right. Sorry. Were there any specific officers or departments that you had to interact with, Dr. Parida and Dr. Venkatesh, or it was just
Nothing
taken
like
care of
this.
by your
Mine
institute?
was quite straightforward. I mean, we get plasmids from Adgene all the time.
Right.
Another to deposit all the plasmids in Adgene, and then it becomes very straightforward, because then you can just sort of get it through Adgene. That's what I would follow. But yeah, it's quite straightforward. It shouldn't be difficult.
And if not for cell lines and biological samples, what about Dr. Kaur or Dr. Amita? Did you have any such difficulties in transferring any of your data per se, or any such copyright
No,
issues that you had to face, resources,
no,
anything like
actually, yeah, that works really well when you have a good with your lab which you are living, the place you are living, and the lab where you are going. You discuss with them that this is what you have and this is what you're taking. And for at least for my case, both the postdoc labs were really happy to help in setting up the lab. So, some things which they are not using regularly, they would just happy, and then they also make sure that they transfer from their pocket all this thing to the place I was going in. So this is kind of a starter packet you get from them if you have maintaining good thing. And I think you at least you have to make sure that you are going tangential with your ideas, but like same idea you are both are working, so that there is no competition. You in future you might collaborate on some ideas, so you don't need to have that. We'll be competing with the same ideas, same work again in the two different locations, which will sound bad for your own independent position. So if this is clear, I think it will help. And but as Aishwarya said, that in every places things are set up to have this thing, and this is quite a regular process. So the admin is quite used to it to do that.
Is it the same for mouse models as well?
I'm not I don't do much
So
biology.
for mouse models, it can happen. Most institutes with a good animal house will have the licensing and everything set up, but it takes a lot longer. So I would say if you are interested in bringing back a mouse model, the day you join, start the paperwork, because many places have to get clearance, and that can take a lot longer than reagents or something else. But it's absolutely possible. We've imported multiple strains from the US. So yeah.
We'll take one question, last question before we have a poll. So this question is from Satvik, and he wants to ask if doing PhD and postdoc from the same institute is a red flag for recruitment. If anyone wants to answer that question, Dr. Thakur, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, I'll briefly add that if your work speaks for yourself, so it's not a red flag, at least in the department that I'm in and the areas that I have worked on. So again, as we see, there are lots of departments in the panelists are involved in, and they could have different criteria, but we certainly don't see it as a red flag. There's also no. I just add to it that there is also no bias against people doing postdocs in India. I mean, they're doing PhDs and postdocs in India, so people have asked me if it actually helps getting a PhD postdoc abroad. So I'd also add that it doesn't matter where you do your postdoc or your PhD. It's the work and actually, of course, your vision after this that matters the most.
Okay. We would open up for a poll question now. Thank you, Nitin.
Let's try to be quick to answer this. We don't have to write too much. 50% have answered. We're almost there on the other side.
These are the results.
I can't see them. Can others see them?
Yeah, so
Yes, they are like almost 30% of the attendees, they are from 5+ years, and first, second, third, fourth year, we have almost 20% for each group. So we have a mix again, but definitely there are a lot of people who are 5+ and want to go back.
I'm also seeing in the chat that there are a few PhD students as well. So it looks like we have a
mixed bag here. Yeah,
distribution here.
Really good. Okay, so
And
we'll get.
That I have one small poll, since we have a good number of participants. It's just about, like, we already mentioned that we are opening up the volunteer call for next year. So I just want to get an idea. We want to get an idea that who are from which part of the world, and then whether they will be willing to join Sayora next year. So just please answer to this poll. So if you are interested to join Sayora as a volunteer next year, please look out for the forms what we'll have on our social media channels. So please fill out that Google Forms, and then we will get back to you. Yeah, so we have almost like 40 people who want to join Samurai next year. So yeah, look for the forms soon.
Thank you, Nitin. Is that all the polls right now?
That's it. I think one more is there, which if you wanna go back, so there's one more just to get an idea about the audience. 1 second.
Oh, yeah. This is asking when they're planning to apply for positions.
Yeah, this seems that we have almost like 100% people who are willing to go back in next 1-2 years.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay.
Let's continue with the webinar. The next question is, do universities consider spousal hires, both private and public, in order to solve a two-body problem? Also, is teaching experience valued, or is research the most important from your experiences? Dr. Kuljit Kaur, do you want to? Yes.
Yeah, maybe I can take this because we are a two-body problem. So I don't know. I don't think universities consider spousal hires. At least I can, wherever my husband is. I mean, it's both good and bad. Of course, it's bad for you because you are in that situation. But again, if they don't think the candidate it is good, so they will not hire it just because you are a spouse of a faculty. But at some places, so I think it used to happen back in the day. Now I think it does not happen that often because again, the number of applications which now institutes are getting is going up. So I think that is the major reason that I have not seen this happening that often. But again, it can vary from institute to institute. Some institutes are receptive to this still. In my opinion, I think the older IITs are still a bit more receptive to this compared to the newer IITs. But that is all, I mean, what I have experienced. So this is my take on this. Maybe other panelists have more things to add to this.
So CCMB does not do spousal hires. They're upfront about it. They tell you right off the bat that it will not be considered. As far as I know, most places now are not going to consider spousal hires. That's why people target big cities with a lot of university clusters like Bangalore, Hyderabad, where they can find, and that turns out to be more common, and most often the solution is something in the same city. But I would say, yeah, it's outright not possible in places. They'll tell you right off the bat. Yeah.
So our next question is, if your application is rejected from one institute, can you reapply again?
And what are the chances that if you improve upon the application, it gets accepted or gets further? Have you, in your experience, or maybe your colleagues, any of the speakers would like to share?
Yes,
Yeah,
Dr.
reapplication, I think definitely you should reapply because with time your CV also gets better, right? And also when you are writing your proposal, that with time that also gets better. So I am one of the example because the same institute rejected me 2 years before and then they accepted. So it's basically your CV and your write-up, those things matters. And basically this will be more merit. Rather, don't think that this will be one-time rejection and they will never will consider your application. That is not true. They may consider.
Again, this might be institute specific, and it also depends on what stage the rejection happened. So there's usually two stage process, right? There's an initial selection, and then you go all the way to the end after the faculty interactions and everything. After that, if there's a rejection, there's very likely that stage they've assessed fit, they've really given it a good thought, and at that stage a second chance is probably pointless. But if it happened very early in the pipeline, that it was decided by the faculty search committee that this is not a fit, in which case it can happen. But I would say this is one of the reasons why we encourage people to apply when they think they're ready, and it's that you feel you're ready, right? Because rarely, at least in my experience, rarely I've seen second chances go well. So Pravath is giving you a perspective, I'm giving you the other perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, why I'll tell you, because this is again related to that was first round rejection, but over time, if it is rolling advertisement, they may not consider, but if it is open position, because they are looking for a pool of applicants, and based on that, they are selective. So in that case, they cannot reject based on your prior application things. But if it is rolling advertisement, because I was rejected from CCMB, and again when I reapplied, that was outright no for me. Yeah, I have seen both the things. So yeah, for me, I think this is maybe not applied to the rolling advertisement, but open positions are a little different.
Thank you, Dr. Farida, for sharing your personal journey. And a quick question, how is it a common practice for fellowships like Ramanujan or Ramalinga Swami to apply before applying for assistant professor jobs? How important they are and how can they help us?
I was a Ramanujan fellow. I think I've heard both sides of the stories now. There are people like in places like CCMB, they only allow you to apply for Ramling Swami or Ramanujan as a host when they're sort of in the final process of finalizing your application. So at that stage, you're given full commitment that you're going to be transition to a permanent position. But I've also, so in that case, it was very useful because the official process can take months and you're actually ready on the ground, willing to start from day one. And you're just sitting this out because some paperwork is taking time. So Ramanujan gave me a foot in the door. I was able to start at the same level as people who were hired without the fellowship. And I got, I think, 8 months in the system when everything, I was able to set my lab, hire PhD students, order supplies, equipment. So it was hugely useful. But I've also heard of, that's why I'm giving this as a caveat. This is very institution specific. I think this is a conversation you need to have with the head of the institution about what the chances are like for you to be absorbed into a permanent position before going forward. So I put that as a big disclaimer. If the institute is on board to helping you transition like it was in CCMB, it can be a boon, right? So that's my take. Yeah. And about whether we should give back the research funding, yes. With Ramanujan, you have to give back the research funding. But because I knew that before, I ordered everything I wanted in the first month. So there's nothing to give back. So you can play that game also.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Venkatesh. Yes, Dr. Amita, you wanted to
I agree. I completely agree. I think I have also heard both sides of the story, and I think it will help. As per I know, the number of stories, it will help more than if you have a clear conversation with your institute. Okay, what will be the chances? And additional money to start the lab always helps. You also can hire some assistant position on this, so always help. So given a chance, don't go back from that. Just apply.
Thank you, Dr. Amita. So let's move.
Sorry, just one point. Even in that, Ramling Swami happens only in a cycle, but Ramanujam is year round. So you can apply whenever you want throughout the year, which I think is very flexible. Yeah, just wanted to add that. Yeah.
Thank you for adding that point, Dr. Venkatesh. So Aishwarya, would you like to go ahead and ask the next question?
Yeah, so one thing was talking about the different types of fellowships, re-entry fellowships. The other thing was how difficult or easy was it for you to apply for funding and collaborations? Why, once you've already started your lab, what kind of support does your institute provide? And since we have like a diverse, we have private, we have ICERs, and we also have IITs, we have CSIR, we could maybe go get an perspective.
They are actually giving us a lot of things like seed grant value is like, if I will disclose, this is huge. And also then another support is they can actually, if you propose, you can also get CAIF facility, because I'm now trying to establish one of those center of art metabolomics facility here in ISER Berhampur, and the sanction amount is huge. And apart from seed grant, you can also look for this, because I proposed internal grant for the metabolomics, and this was accepted. So they are providing a lot of supports, to be honest, like, because within this almost a year, and now my lab is functional. So that's a good sign, because they are supporting a lot in ISER Berhampur, at least that I can say.
I can say same
If I
for
can
Ashika.
add.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right, just a
Yeah.
quick thing. So at IITs again, we have the same thing. We have a full departments which are like supporting you, your research, whatever help you need with applying for grants or setting up your lab, you have to do that. You get some seed money to start your lab. I think it's an internal thing, and you have to write a small proposal for that, just a 2-page or 1.5-page long, and it's like a sure shot money. So now you can also negotiate it, that startup money at some institutes. That is something I have been seeing. Some institutes they give you a fixed amount. You cannot go beyond that, but it's enough for you to start the first year and then start applying for grants.
So, Dr. Kod,
For
would
the
you say that you negotiated that while you're hiring also? You can have that conversation with the
So
recruit, with your
you can, I did not. So there is like a cap. For example, it's like 25 lakhs somewhere, 40 lakhs somewhere. So that's the maximum they will go up to. Okay,
Sure.
so that's the thing. So depending on the proposal, of course, you have to defend it. It is different for the different institute. At IIT Roorkee, you have to defend it in front of a committee. So then the final amount is whatever sanctioned and all. But I think the initial amount is good to get you started.
Got it. And sorry, what about Dr. Thakur? Since you're also at an IIT.
Yeah, so the thing is, we have the seed grant facility. Then you apply to, so there was a question regarding public and private people applying to funds. So there is no such distinction. You apply to all the proposal calls on the Anusandhan National Research Foundations, or if you go to any departments, any ministries that are actually relevant to your work, you apply there. And at least IIT Delhi has equipment matching grant. So let's say you buy you get an equipment head from an external agency, let's say DST. Let's say it's 25 lakhs, and then some personal charges, and then some consumables. Let's say your total is 40 lakhs. Then IIT Delhi matches that with just 25 lakhs head, so which is the equipment. So you get 25 lakhs from IIT Delhi on top of what you have gotten from the external agency.
Right.
And there are numerous actually private companies and places which are interested. For example, someone is developing something for skydiving applications. There's some engineering applications developing, and they have received a lot of money to do those experiments. So there are various options. So I'd say people should not be actually afraid to explore.
Right. And do you think that they required some sort of a credibility in terms of a paper or some sort of a proposal? How did they require that while you were applying for this, a paper?
So actually, for example, let's say the startup research grant, which is now called the Prime Minister's early career grant, early career research grant, is something which is given to a person who has started a position and is probably not expected to have, let's say, huge volume of work or a huge expertise. But if you're applying to something which is considered slightly above that, which is the core research grant, or you are doing something which involves a lot of more money than the startup grant, then you should probably show some expertise in those areas. And that private company that I was talking to will, of course, come to you if you have expertise in those areas.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Thakur. Dr. Venkatesh, would you like to also share?
Yeah, I mean, I've had fun figuring out the funding landscape in India, so this will be interesting. So, first off, I think CCMB has been extremely generous, right? So, from the start, I also saw a question, can you negotiate for equipment? You can, and you might be able to, but ultimately, like Kuljeet was saying, all the institutes have an internal cap, right? So within that cap, and that becomes obvious once you join. So for me, all the freezers, the general lab setup, fridges, freezers, centrifuges, pipettes, all of this came from CCMB, and there was nothing to defend. It was just what they gave. I think from the first year, from the first month I joined, I started writing grants because it quickly became obvious that the reagents, which tend to be very expensive in my case, consumable heavy research, you're expected to sort of bring in your own money. In India, you have 4 to 5 major agencies. You have CSIR, you have DBT, you have SERB, which is now ANRF, you have Wellcome Trust, and then you have some private ones that come in once in a while. Unlike the NIH R21 or R01, which is very cyclic, it gets reviewed, then gets released, then that rhythmicity is often absent in India. So things can take a lot longer than you anticipate. So if you want to fund your lab 2 years down the line, you're starting to write for grants today. That's sort of how it goes. And I think SERB, SRG, which is what Dr. Thakur was mentioning, I have that as well. That was really good to start off. They didn't want a lot of preliminary data. CSAR happens periodically. DBT is another thing which is becoming very regular now. I have a DBT grant now, and I think they expected a bit more preliminary data. So this can be something that you shoot once you've had the basic setup in your lab figured out. And then ICMR has also gotten really good. So they're now doing cycles at least two times a year. And it's not necessarily only for medical research. They're funding a wide range of topics now. So I think there is a nice booklet from India Bioscience on grants for faculty returning to India. It's exhaustive. It's 156 pages, I think. I would recommend that you download that and sort of get a feel for what the landscape is like in India. Come prepared. And keep in mind that it's going to take more tries. It's just like the landscape in the US. You might have to apply and reapply. Some of
So,
it you hit, some
Venkatesh, do
of
you
it.
think have you experienced that there's like an age limit for the applying for these grants, or that can be throughout your career? Or
I mean, not for any of those. I think SRG has an age limit, which is probably the only one which has an age limit from SERB. But DBT and all of those other ones that I mentioned, I don't think they have any age limit. They might have a time limit for the startup grants, 2 years from join or start your lab or something like that. But it's not necessarily an age limit. And I think now I would say it's pretty good. I mean, if you apply for 6 to 8 grants, I think with the feedback that you receive, your odds and your chances go up. So I think, like I said, figure out what the major funding agencies are, keep your eyes out, and start applying from day one.
Thank you. Another question that came up a lot is how critical is teaching experience in the recruitment, as postdocs usually don't have the conventional teaching experience? If someone from the IITs or Dr. Karida wants to take this question first.
Yeah, I can go ahead for this. So yeah, like in ICER system, when you apply and go for interview, they have a provision of 1 or 2 slides that need to be filled with your teaching experience and what you want to teach and how you want to teach, or what are the subjects that you can teach. So those prospect they actually do during the interview. And then later, actually, when you come here, definitely there will be teaching loads. And you have to run your lab, and in parallel, you have to also take classes, because now I'm hugely loaded with both labs as well as writing grants, then taking classes, then checking copies. Those are going to be huge workload, but you need to be prepared for that. And definitely you will have some teaching loads.
So let me rephrase the question. So Dr. Parida, when you said you did your postdoc from the US, right? So when you went back, did you have enough teaching experience?
Not really. So, but overall thing is, like, when you are, although you are not experienced, but you have to prepare because you know how you are presenting your research, right? That should be enough, because whenever whenever you are, let's say, taking one subject, you read and then prepare your presentation, then you are ready for that. So that will be more like what you are presenting, your research, or it's your teaching. So I think that should be enough. I don't think you need prior experience to be a teacher here.
Thank you, Dr. Parita. Yes, Dr. Amita.
So what you can do is clearly clear your head about what you are interested in teaching. Go to the program where they have. Identify the type of courses you can contribute and type of courses you propose. Have a slide upfront in the end. You are interested in teaching. Clarify your teaching philosophy, that what you like about teaching. Put on slide, so at least they know that even if you have less teaching experience, you might have a teaching experience as a teaching fellow or teaching associate during your PA's classes, right? Mention that and be upfront about it if you don't have any other teaching experience. But at least there you should put effort in looking at the teaching curriculum, where you fit in, and what you can additionally add on. On top of that, I think a couple of, at least I know from Ashoka, that we are also having these days research faculty positions where you come with your research plan. You are not supposed to be teaching. It's kind of independent of teaching kind of positions. But if you want to get into university tenure system, you need to also contribute to teaching. So you can have both options.
Thank you, Dr. Amita. Yes, Dr. Kaur.
Yeah, so I think that's true that as postdocs, we do not get a lot of exposure to teaching. And even as PhDs, it's just like small teachings here and there. But I think what departments in India, or at least in IITs, of course, you are expected to teach, right? And I think, for example, it happened with me. I'm interested in polymers. I wanted to research in polymers. And oftentimes in India, we find polymers either in material departments or chemical engineering. And when I go to their websites, I cannot teach courses in a chemical engineering department. So this was a huge hurdle for me because I'm trained in chemistry. So that was a huge challenge because you are expected at least during your presentation to have a teaching plan, or at least tell them that what are the courses you would be able to teach. And also there is another expectation that you should be also coming up with a newer course which could add to the curriculum. So that is again another thing which at least at IITs they expect you to do. So that can be more related to your research expertise. So these are the two things. I think you should be able to, you should go to the department's website and you should be able to recognize the courses which you could teach either comfortably or with some practice. So that's the thing.
Thank you, Dr. Kaur. Dr. Thakur, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I didn't have any teaching experience, but teaching is an extremely important part of my job and my personal interest. So I took up to the effort to look at YouTube videos on how to be a good teacher, what students actually want, how to engage students, and I tried to put those things in my teaching philosophy, as Professor Mehta already mentioned. Right before the start of my teaching seminar. So I put my teaching philosophy. I made them understand that this is what I believe in. And then I gave so it was COVID time. So I gave it was not a chalk talk, but it was digital blackboard talk. So because that's the thing that I like rather than slides. So it's a personal preference, of course. So I gave that kind of a talk, and many things that I heard from excellent teachers on YouTube actually helped me to frame my frame my teaching seminar. But certainly, I mean, being on the selection panel now, so we don't give any weightage. Like, for example, there is no elimination based on no teaching experience. And there is also not a huge advantage given to person with teaching experience, but it's a more holistic search, I'd say. But people have to be good in teaching. If it's terribly bad, people are rejected based on that also.
Thank you. Our next question is about research papers. Is corresponding author better than becoming first author? And why is it better? And does it affect the job search process?
Actually, yeah, there's somebody also asking how many papers or how many years
or what's the impact factor? Someone said
Yeah.
if you go to the IITs, it has to be very high impact factor, otherwise they don't accept you. So
We'll probably go into the details now. Yeah.
Someone from the IITs, would you want to address this question? What about the impact factors required? How many papers? What kind of journals? Dr. Paul, yes, Dr. Paul.
Okay, so again, this is a very difficult to answer this question, but again, there is an unsaid rule, I would say, and it varies hugely between departments. Some of the departments, they care too much about impact factors and numbers of publications. There are certain departments which do not. They probably are looking for what you bring in, when you join as a faculty. So it can vary again. In my experience, I would say in basic sciences, we do consider number of publications and high impact journals. In engineering, maybe not. This is at least my observation. I might be wrong, but it varies. There is no absolute answer to this question, I would say.
Right.
Dr. Ameta, would you want to add something to that?
So indeed, it varies, but I think your main work has to be clearly reflected in publication. Your expertise has to come out in publication. Being corresponding author or first author is a second thing. I think postdoc, you should have your lead author paper first. Corresponding is the second, then the lead author, that you should show that this is my work. I have driven, because it's not only the first authorship, it's also reflect that you have driven the project and you can drive the project when you are in back and driving, setting up your lab. So this also is important. Number of papers and all this thing, I think, it's depend on a lot of institute that it's still there, that number of paper, quality of paper. I think if you have good quality paper, number won't matter much. In a lot of places now, that they look at, okay, this is a good paper, good story, good type of work. Then the long list doesn't matter, but you could find some examples in some universities where you can also, they count the numbers. So I would say go for a good quality, I would say, and have a good story out, so which will help you also defend your, when you go for faculty position interviews.
Dr. Farida, would you want to add to that about the ISERs? What are the rules?
Yeah, we do look at papers. Definitely, we consider publication, but again, this varies. What are the requirement of the department and the field of interest, right? Once we decide that, and between fields, the publication impacts, that varies. So once we cut down to the field of our department's interest, then we screen based on the, let's say, if it is environmental science or it is immunology, then the impact factor definitely will consider immunology. The impact factor should be higher compared to environmental science. So those things we consider based on our requirement. Then definitely between let's say candidates, once we cut them down to 5 or 10, then again we look at the detail, your let's say write-up or research proposal along with your publication and the field that you are interested in or your future prospects, right? And whether your expertise are aligning to that or not. So many factors we consider, and then we decide for the first round of interview.
Thank you, Dr. Farida. Our next question is, how closely should the proposal align with the postdoctoral work? Should it be distinct or can there be some significant overlap? Dr. Venkatesh, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. See, it has a lot to do with what you want to do, right? I mean, I've seen people weave together stories from their PhD and their postdoc. They still have touch with what they did in their PhD, and they want to continue that line of work in their own way. So I've seen that also. Most likely, what we see is people want to continue in the same broad field as their postdoc with their own new directions that completely does not overlap with what their lab was, what their lab is doing. So, I mean, if it is the same protein, but you're studying something slightly different, those kinds of things do get dinged in your talk. Because keep in mind, like I said before, they're looking for the vision. The details matter to some extent, but they're largely wanting to see what do you want to pull off in your research program. So that's a blend of short-term goals, middle-term goals, and long-term goals. So they do look to see where you're headed. And I think it should significantly be different from what your postdoc lab is doing. Absolutely. That's the baseline expectation. Yeah.
Dr. Thakur, would you like to add on to that?
Yes. So the thing is, ideas cannot generate in vacuum. So you have long years of PhDs and postdocs. So certainly that because you're interested, you went to those areas and you want to continue in those areas. So there will certainly be overlap of research skills and the broad questions. Let's say someone is working in climate science, someone is working gene editing. So the broad questions remain, of course, the same. The Holy Grail is for like hundreds and thousands of people are chasing that Holy Grail. So the thing is, it's absolutely important to have your novel touch for that. Having a idea about the broad range of research publication is quite essential. People should, when they start to write their proposals, should go through, should actually read a lot. So it seems like a very deep thing to say, but actually they get a lot of ideas from that. And there'll certainly be skills that you say that, okay, I'm an expert in, let's say, some kind of a work, and then I want to explore these questions. These are my new questions. These are the skills that I have, and you corroborate those things based on some research paper. Say that, okay, in this research paper, I have developed these skills, and this is what will be important for me. So I had like three main questions in mind when I wanted to move back to India. And then those are based on, of course, the skills that I had gained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, somebody here is asking what, sorry, how, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a long question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what Dr. Thakur was sharing was how to develop the research proposal. Somebody is asking here, what does it take to develop a vision or a research proposal? And I think Dr. Thakur did point out that it requires reading, it requires corroborating your ideas, putting it together, and not just replicating what you've done as a skill, but also expanding it to something more vast, some other areas that you can. That's a good point, and it probably covers that question there. Do the other speakers have anything to add, Dr. Parida, Dr. Amita?
So I think Dr. Thakur has put in really well. What you need to identify from reading the gap which you're going to fill from, and the gap should be in the vacuum. It has to be from your expertise. You should be able to answer that because you're proposing something. You should be able to also execute that. Later on, once you join and you know over the time you switch your gears and get more expertise and do that, but try to make sure that you should be able to achieve in next 10 years or something, and based on your experience, because you cannot do something else entirely. People will not look nice that you do something entirely, you don't have any experience on it. Might be not sounding positive in your application. But identify the gap which one to fill.
Right. Identifying the gap, and then there's somebody who's also asking how risky or how novel must it be? Can you like propose something really like risky or novel, or
So
how is that taken? How is that perceived? Sorry.
So you should have a grand picture that this is where you want to go in next 10, 15 years, but you should be having a milestones that this is where I'm touching. Right. And it should reflect that even if this big picture will take some time, you have a continuous way of going and have some independent milestone where you're achieving something. This should be reflecting in your proposal as well as in your talk. Right. That's the feedback I got also from a couple of people. So
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Dr. Parida, anything from your experience of writing your proposals and getting your position?
I believe there should be alignment, but also there should be diversification, because otherwise, if everything is aligning to your postdoc work, then people can think, oh, this guy is not thinking differently, right? So when you are working or you are doing lab experiment, definitely you are thinking broadly, right? And from there onwards, you can see what is next. Maybe your lab is not looking at that prospect. It's because every field is very broad, right? And there are multiple questions. So when you are working, when you are reading, you ask questions, and maybe your lab is not asking that question, and you can take some questions which you want to solve, and those will be your proposal. Again, also when you are writing proposals, you need to write based on the funding situation in India, because if you will write something which is right now not feasible and you don't have data, then maybe they can say it's over ambitious, this is not feasible, that is also going to backfire. So you have to set a limit what your proposal should be, and is it possible to work in India. Because later on you can do that, but initially that may not be possible when you are setting up the lab. So yeah, you need to set that point where your grant and whether it is aligning to the requirement of Indian institutes. So this
How
should
much do you
be
think is too much to propose? Is like two questions good enough, or do you think the proposing multiple questions
two
is like
or three, two or three, because they will never read a full 10-page proposal.
right?
Rather, it will be
Yeah.
precise, and it should be very precise and also informative. Not like 10 pages and they will never read it. Okay.
So following up on what Dr. Parida just said, so can you all suggest any emerging areas of research or
Right.
interdisciplinary fields that young academics should focus on in Indian academic scenario?
For each of the fields, like we have a good spread here, chemistry and everything.
Yeah, maybe Dr. Dr. Parida.
I can start with biology, because this also will vary from institute to institute. And I can only say what ISER is looking, because in the department, when you consider teaching as a prospect, right, you need to have diversification of each field so that that subject can be actually taught to students. So our requirement right now is we are focusing on hiring immunologists, environmental scientists, and also some of those geneticists. So those will be the prior requirement of our department at ISER. But yeah, this will vary from institute to institute.
Thank you. Dr. Venkatesh?
So I think speaking for CCMB, at least they don't hire in defined areas. I'm probably the only serious neuroscientist in CCMB. So when I applied, I was like, wait, there's nobody here. They're known for structure. They're known for plant biology. They're known for hardcore molecular biology. So they really don't care as much as more about what you want to do, how it's going to matter, than about how many of them are already there. And interdisciplinary, they are paying attention to it now. I would say if you are doing genomics, if you end up learning a little bit of bioinformatics yourself, that's probably going to be the most useful investment in the coming years, because it's becoming inevitable that, apart from that, chemistry, there's a lot of emphasis on, at least in the CSIR system, crosstalk between chemistry and biology. So we've had 3 or 4 proposal calls come out asking us to focus specifically on this aspect, but that's very institution specific. I can tell you one thing. Many places do look for very clear focus areas that they're hiring in, and that's something that I wish I had asked the director in my interview during the recruitment process, because sometimes in the end it was told, this is not an area we're looking for. So what focus areas are you hoping to recruit in is a question that you can absolutely ask the head of the institute when you're interviewing. As far as CCMB goes, I think they're a little bit more open to all flavors, as long as it's something that's interesting and catches their eye. Yeah.
Dr. Thakur?
So this is very department specific. So for example, if a department is already 65 to 70 faculty members strong, they will be hiring in very, very specific areas where they want some, let's say someone is retiring or they really want to explore in some areas. And in department where it's only 15%, so probably they will be looking for very good people in those broad areas of research, let's say chemical engineering or biomedical engineering, if those departments align. But I think the question was more about what are the emerging trends in India. But I think there's a big support from the government in quantum computing. So there is certainly lots of focus on blue economy, that's climate change areas, and there is, if I understand correctly, I mean, human health and electric vehicles are some of the areas where there's a lot of push, and of course, alternate sources of energy, like renewable sources. I'm certainly not very well versed in the areas of biology and chemistry, but I'm certain there are those specific focus areas also.
Thank you, Dr. Thakur. Dr. Kaur, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think just to add on to what Dr. Thakur said, so sustainability is huge right now. So that probably touches almost all fields. So, for example, at IITs now, we have to, like all departments have to offer a course depending on their own field about the social impact and sustainability of that. So that is one thing. And other than that, I think, so for emerging research areas, I would say, again, they are again department specific. Okay, like mine is a small department, but for example, right now we are looking for some people who have a background in chemistry. So our department is a very interdisciplinary department. We have mechanical engineers, we have chemical engineers, we have polymer chemists. So again, if it's an interdisciplinary department, they would be more open to hire people from all varied backgrounds. But if there are more like core departments like civil engineering, and then there will be like pockets of specific areas they're looking for. And most of the times, at least IITs, they would advertise that they are looking for that specific area. So I think that should be checked, because if they have said that, it's likely that they're going to look just in that area when they're hiring.
Thank you, Dr. Kaur. Dr. Ameta, would you like to add something from the biology perspective?
So I cannot speak much of biology perspective, but at least the emerging area from perspective of us also, we are looking for genomics, big data sciences, AI. It's going to be really big. There will be good calls for that. But at the university perspective, what also we believe that it's a entire package. So we have people, strong component of ecology and evolution. What we are missing is still a plant person. So sometimes you might find that niche that okay, this is what constitutes an entire package we want to give it to our students. So that is there.
Thank you, Dr. Ameta. Debashish Paul, yes, do you have a question? Debashish, do you have a question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks for the chance to ask the question. So in the same line regarding the proposal, is it advisable, or how much weightage do you give to basic science research versus translational science research? That's number one. And number two is when you, so I think Dr. Ashwarya just said that she should have asked what the institute is looking for. So what's the right time to go and seek that information before applying, or how do you do that? And the third question is regarding, modulating your research proposal according to the institutes. What are the do's and don'ts according to the panelists?
So the time to ask that question is during your interaction with the faculty, when you've cleared the first round and you've been called to give a talk. And that at that point, you have a interaction with almost all the faculty and the head of the institute. So at that time is when is best and most appropriate to ask if the director is thinking of hiring in certain focus areas. As far as translational bent, now I think I can safely say that CSIR, at least DBT, and many of these places are looking for translational angle a lot more these days. So I think even at the level of an interview, it might be wise to have at least 1 or 2 slides about, at least to show that you're thinking along those lines in the long term, even if it's not something that's coming immediately, because that is an answer that you will have to give. So they do pay. I won't say they would reject a candidate just because their work is not translational, but I'd say they'd at least be looking to see if the person has thought about implications in the future. And as far as modulating it by the institute, like I said, I mean, CSR institutes tend to be heavily research intensive, so there's no teaching statement or anything else that's required. So in that angle, you could, focus more on sort of padding your research ideas. But ultimately, I think in the talk, a couple of ways in which you can bring out how you fit in the institute has really helped for us to show that they've thought about who's there and what the ecosystem is like and where their niche is, whether there's room for crosstalk with other people, and what would that look like? Is there anyone that you think you could collaborate with? Is there something that's missing in the pipeline that you think you can add to? That when it's brought out either in proposal form or the talk form, I think that really sells your case very well.
Dr. Venkatesh. I see we have a lot of direct questions as well in the chat, and I see Dr. Parida and Dr. Thakur answering some of them. Thank you for answering. There's a direct question to Dr. Ishwarya Venkatesh as well about CCMB, and let me read it. Yeah, how did you approach CCMB and how did you find it can be a good fit for you? How many rounds of interview? And
I see. CCMB, I mean, it was an obvious choice because I think it's one of the places that does work very close to what I was doing at that time. They have a terrific animal house and genomics facility, two strong pillars for my research program. So I think in that sense, it made sense to apply. I applied during COVID, so the timelines are vastly different. But for us, what we do is we have a rolling advertisement throughout the year. You email the faculty search committee email ID with your proposal and your CV, and then you get screened at that stage by faculty who are doing the initial screening. And if you're called in for an interview, that's usually a one and done process. We don't have multiple stages. In one visit, you have a 1 hour talk that you give, and that's attended by pretty much everyone. And in that 1 hour is what I was telling you, because there is no separate chalk talk component for you to bring out your vision. It becomes really important for you to structure your talk accordingly so that you have left enough time for you to tell them about not just what you've done, but what you plan to do. And that's 1 hour where I think heavily we get an idea about what the candidate wants to do. At that point, the proposal is also floated to all of the faculty, and we are asked to sign up to interact with the candidate one-on-one. So that also is a chance for you to get to know sort of how research and the structure is in the institute, and also identify areas for collaboration. And I think after that, if you've made it to the final cut, you hear back from the director saying that we're going ahead with your proposal for the last round, which itself can take a long time. But at that point, you're at least now in the final list, and they keep you posted on where you are in the pipeline of getting hired. And that's about the area or the timeline when you would apply for a Ramanujan, indicating CCMB as the area of interest, so on and so forth. But TIFR, NCBS, IASC, they all have a separate chalk talk component where they give you enough time to sort of tell you about your future direction. So I think it's wise to tailor more than your proposal, your talk, according to what the institute is looking for. So if in the institute there's only going to be one talk, then you of course have to give a lot more time, like I said, for your future directions. But if you're going to have a separate round for your chalk talk, then you can do it at that point as well.
Dr. Venkat, if I can just interrupt here and ask, so you were throughout outside the country, right? So for these interviews, did you make it a point to come for the interviews in person? Were you sure of the position already? Like, because a lot of us are outside the country, and should we attend in person? Should it be the first round we attend, second round we attend? What are your thoughts?
So I think it was during COVID, so everything was virtual. So I was doing it all at odd hours in the night when I was in the US and taking the interviews in India. What I've seen people do is line up a lot of the interviews. So if you're through to the first round and they invite you for an interview, and you have a couple of offers like that, you could negotiate the timeline with them and say that I'm planning a trip in about 3 to 4 months. Could I put this with that? So most of the candidates who come in person are doing the circuit. They're actually going to multiple places.
And this is probably true for others as well. Do people think that institutes prefer you coming in person versus
I think
yeah, absolutely.
Now,
yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
Dr. Amita?
Yeah, so I think you should go in person if you can, because it's not only they want to see, you also want to see the place, right? Where you want to spend your next good 15, 20, 25 years, or your good part of your life. So you should go. If you get a chance, you should definitely go. Don't sign anything before going the place, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you for that. We have last few minutes. Sorry. the last few minutes towards the end. I see a hand raised, so I'll give that question to Amal Vijay. Would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, yeah. Hi, and thanks for the nice section. So the question I just want to ask is, suppose if you get selected for the faculty position, how much relaxation time they will give to join the institute? Will it be 1 year or less than that? Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's something you can bring up during your interview, like I said, with the interaction time as well. What are the timelines? In certain cases, they want you in as quickly as possible, but in most places, they're quite flexible because they're looking at a long-term investment. So a few months is not going to make a big difference. But if you're really working with strict timelines, I would encourage you to have that conversation with the director or the hiring committee when you're doing your interview so that you get a feel for what they're looking for.
Aishwarya, do you want to take the next question?
Sure. As we move towards the end of this really interactive session, we'd like to thank each of our speakers. And before we close, any last few pieces of advice that each of you would like to share? We can start with Dr. Thakur.
Well, I mean, I said most of the things that I had to. So I think starting 1 year ahead is probably a very good idea. Meeting people in flesh and blood actually makes a difference. That actually is helpful for you and also the members of the department. I think it's always nice to have very interesting goals with very different timelines in your project proposal, and to be honest to yourself, whether you are a fit in the department, and certainly there can be some minor changes in your application regarding the kind of work that they are looking forward to. But I think it seems like a daunting task. It seemed to me when I was applying, but actually things turn out you will cross the bridge when it comes. So it's actually not should not be scared like what happens 1.5 years later. So I think everyone will do fine.
Thanks, Dr. Thakur. That was great. Thank you. You also summarized a lot of the discussion. Dr. Kaur, would you like to go next?
Yeah, again, like just adding a few more things. So yes, have a vision about what you want to do. That is very appreciated. A lot of questions were asked about how long the research proposal should be. I think it should be crisp, to the point. Most of the IITs, at least, they don't even have a page limit for it, but at least make it very clear when you go for a talk, for a formal talk. Again, it should be to the point. To talk about your past research, just to tell them what your skill sets are, and then about your future goals, because that is the place where all that future research you are planning is going to happen. So it's important for them, for the department, to know that what you will bring in there. So that's very important, and start early, because it takes time for you to formulate ideas and what you want to do as an independent researcher. It's not easy, but it's not impossible to do this.
Thank you, Dr. Kaur. Dr. Parida?
Yeah. So just I will add few things. One is if you really want to come back to India, just follow the recruitment of each and every institute, what exactly they are looking for, and when they are recruiting, whom they are recruiting, what are the profile and how the CV looks like. So at least this will actually help you to find out what is exactly these academic institutes or the research institute they are looking for. And then based on that, you do hard work and make your CV good, and then write a good proposal. And also don't forget to go for networking. So this really helps, and this also helps you to build your confidence. And that is what is required when you are going for talks. That will eventually help you. So yeah, that's from me.
Thank you, Dr. Dr. Parida. Dr. Mehta, would you like to
So
share?
I think everything is covered. Just one advice I give, I mean, much experience I give you, that this process is a long process and pretty non-linear. where we don't know what are the odds and we are always against. What is in your control, the parameters which you have is preparation, make your proposal good, discuss with people. These are all the parameters you have in your hand. The rest of the parameters, you don't know what's going on the other hand. You can just predict. Don't shy off in asking help. Don't shy off in contacting people and get feedback. For your proposal, for your application, get feedback. All this prepare well. Prepare like Excel file where you want to apply. Make a good preparation. These are the departments I want to apply. This is the only thing you can do at this point.
Thank you, Dr. Amita. And then finally, Dr. Venkatesh, before we...
People already covered most of it. I just want to say that, we were all in the same boat as you guys a few years ago. It can feel daunting, but we're also proof that, there is light at the end of the tunnel on the other side. We're here, we are thriving, and, we're more than willing to help you out in the process. If I missed out any questions, I dropped my Twitter ID. Please send your comments there. I mean, I'll try to answer as much as I can. And throughout the process, if you have any questions about the institutes, feel free to reach out. And I think if you're on the fence about should I go for this now, I say pull the trigger. I think sometimes you need that final thing to say, just go for it. And all the very best. And I hope to see some of you here next year answering the questions on the other side. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And with that, I think we can formally close the discussion. Like Dr. Venkatesh shared, please reach out to the speakers. They're really nice people. They've been really helpful in this discussion. You can also reach out to us. We can put you in touch. And we'll also ask you for some suggestions for future webinars. If you would like to hear any speakers, any specific topics, please go ahead and vote. Maybe.
Can everyone participate in the poll? We just have two people participated.
I get close to the end. That's why.
Okay. We have more people participating. Thank you. We encourage everyone to participate in the poll so that it helps us organize more of these sessions for everyone. So please tell us what you want to hear about next. Thank you. And also, as you can see, I have put up the volunteer call out over here. So if anyone here wants to be a part of SciRoy and want to be part of our amazing team, so please reach out to us. Follow us on all our social media channels @SciRoy, and you can get to know about us.
Do we have
I think we have enough answers.
Okay, sure. And then it's also, of course, our annual meeting. It was great. It was a lot of fun. A lot of people have also given us feedback that it's been useful to help them find connections. So for all of us who are outside the country, looking out for networks, looking out for platforms to really reach out to the Indian academia, SciRoy is actually giving you that one platform right here. So you have Indian institutes, leaders of Indian institutes, like directors from all of these major institutes come in. There's also the funding bodies that come in, give talks. You can interact one-on-one, have long discussions. So please do make it a point to attend. We have found it really useful in building that connection. So Washington, D.C. in US and Vienna in Europe. So please look out for the registrations details further. And with that, thank you so much for providing 2 hours of your valuable time on a Saturday evening. I know it's a lot for the speakers, very important time, very crucial time. And thank you to all the participants, all the attendees, and the SciRoy team that's put this up together. Thank you, and we hope to stay connected. Yes.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.